knows your name.
Okay, and we're back. Welcome everybody to our first installment, episode 1 of Antiques and Collectibles, brought to you by none other than a Mountain Boomer. My name is Mike. I'm located near Denver, Colorado, Rocky Mountain High, Colorado, in fact. So let me give you a little background. Why are we doing this? Okay, Nightbot, we're on it. All right, we're on it. We're here. We're doing antiques and collectibles. I do happen to sell antiques and collectibles and other oddities and unique items on eBay. We do sell some items, new items on Amazon, and we also are in a antique mall in Denver. It's called the Brass Armadillo, and it's located near I-70 in Kipling. Honey New, thanks very much for the follow. Appreciate it. So let's talk about the stream and what's going to happen here. I'm not an appraiser. The Brass Armadillo, yes, indeed. They have 6 stores across the country. I'm not being paid by them. I pay them to be in their stores. We rent space from them. And what they do is they sell the items. They handle all that stuff. And they take a cut. And then hopefully every couple of weeks we get a check of what we sell. So it's up to us to maintain our booths. We happen to have multiple booths there. And we do quite well. Not making a mint or a million or anything like that, but we do just fine. So let's about what I'm going to talk about today. These opinions are mine alone. I'm not an appraiser. I'm not a licensed appraiser in any way, shape, or form. So this is just what I've been able to locate on these particular items. Regionally, prices of antiques are all over the board. So what things sell for in Denver may not be what they sell for on the eastern coast or the western coast of the U.S. or anywhere else in the world for that matter. No, Boo, I will let you know about that. I can tell you about that. And it's a funny story. It's when we first got started. In fact, it's one of those things that really got us going. So antiques in the United States are anything over 100 years old. Okay, other parts of the world, an antique in Europe is well over 200 years old. So, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so certain items sell for way more in other parts of the country than they do here for some reason. There's Crocs that don't sell very much here in the Denver metro area, but you take them out to Kansas and you'll get double the price. It's very strange. It's very weird how that works. So we've been doing this. I've been doing this for about 7 years-ish, somewhere in there. My focus is we do some furniture, we do small furniture, we do more unique items, one-of-a-kinds, stuff you don't see. I don't want to put in my booth or online things that there's a million of them up, like the cast iron cornbread muffin pans that look like corn. Everybody and their brother has them, okay? Well, they're not very rare, so there's not going to be a lot of money in there unless you can get it for next to nothing. I mean, there's not going to be a lot of money in there. They sell for $40, right? So unless I get it for $1, big deal. But some of the you put some of that in your booth just for flavor and flair and whatever, decorating. But I try to avoid it. My focus is tends to be more on electronics, musical instruments. Although I'm not a musician, I would love to play. I'm terrible at it. I won't devote enough time to learn it. It doesn't come natural to me, so it's something I'd love to play the guitar, and I've wanted to since I've been a kid, and it just doesn't flow with me. It doesn't. I don't know. The way my brain works, it just doesn't work well. So I'll go to talking about things in that nature. So So I've got some older guitars, not necessarily not antique. Antique musical instruments are far and few between, and they're generally not in very good shape. I've seen a lot of antique fiddles and stuff, and they're made for hanging on a wall because they're in terrible condition, and they look really nice hanging on a wall in the right house. You certainly couldn't play them. So that's kind of my story. And I forgot. I should have put. I'll put our eBay store in if people want to check that out at some point. I'll do that in between one of the breaks. I forgot to write that down and put that on. But my wife, she specializes in clothing, antique and vintage clothing, and really anything on eBay is kind of a potluck. Obviously, there's antiques and collectibles and not antiques, and there's new stuff. So we go to auctions. We don't tend to go to a lot of estate sales. I find the prices there are not conducive to me actually making any money. That a lot of the estate sailors, not all, but some of them are. They're definitely out for themselves first, and you got to watch the prices. So we haven't had very good luck at those, but at auctions we do have better luck. And we go to one generally every Tuesday in town, and they have everything from furniture to collectibles to we call box lots, hardware, just odds and ends, garage sale, flea market type items, and then they have the more expensive antiques that start a little bit later in the evening. So the items that I have today. Two of them are my own. They're microphones that I've actually I've used one of them anyways. The other one I purchased from a friend of mine who's now passed away. He was clearing out his ham radio collection. He got cancer unfortunately and passed away not too long ago. So I did buy it because I like the microphones. They look cool. Look at that. One of the items is a magazine clip holder. It was a point of sale. Item that you would hang a magazine on. It would be on the newsstand. This is definitely from the 20s. And then the other thing is it's called it's a match dispenser. And you found these in drugstores or wherever tobacco products are sold. And they would dispense a matchbook. So that's where I are. So before we get to those things, we asked what was what I have the most for an antique that I sold for. So when we first got into business, we were in a store closer to where I live in Castle Rock, Colorado, and we just got a space in there. We were on a wall rack, so we didn't have a lot of space, but we did pretty well. And then we got actually like a 8x10 booth or whatever it was, whatever the size was, doesn't matter. But we were in an auction. We found it was a mercantile shelving unit, and it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. It was the right size, just fit in the booth. It had shelving up above. It was about, 8 foot tall, maybe a little taller. And it was probably about 8x8, like 8 foot tall, 8 foot wide. And storage underneath with drawers. And, oh my gosh, the booth looked fantastic. 3 days later, okay, I marked it at a ridiculous price. I didn't want to sell it. I mean, it was a ridiculous price. It was a ridiculous price. 3 days later, the manager goes, I got your mercantile display sold. And I go, wait, what? He goes, yep. She's a friend, blah, blah, blah. Would you give her a discount? Like, yeah, okay. The markup was enormous. I mean, that I'm not going to talk about it. But so anyways, it was many thousands of dollars. And not that that's a lot. I mean, some antiques can sell for ridiculous amounts of money. But for us just getting started, it definitely propelled the business forward with some cash. So that worked out. That worked out pretty well. I haven't really had anything like that happen. The only other, I guess, thing that I bought what we thought was a back to one of the old telescoping cameras. You know, you see the guy leaning over with his head underneath the the shroud or whatever the heck you call it, the black thing. They're taking a portrait of somebody. So we thought it was just the back of the camera. I thought, all right, for $15, I think I can probably sell it for $50. Okay, I'm not making a lot of money, but I think a camera aficionado would like that. And I started digging around on it and found out that it was patented in the mid 1800s, and it was actually an enlarging device, and it actually had all the parts to it. There was a little magnifying glass enlarger, and it was all there. And I threw it on eBay, and I sold it to somebody in Germany for about $400. So that's what they went for. I had no idea what it was at the time when I bought it. Some of these things you can look up. eBay's a wonderful source. Now, if you're thinking about getting into this market, eBay is a great way to try to determine what the value of something might be. Do not go with the listing price. Go find the search function and go see what they sold for, and then add your shipping in and stuff like that if you're trying to come up with the local price. So eBay is going to be your bottom dollar. It can go up from there, and keep in mind when you're buying on eBay, you haven't handled the product, you don't know what condition it's really in, so people price accordingly. So if it's in my store, it's probably priced a little higher because people can actually see the quality, and they can take it home, and they don't have to worry about the shipping and having it broke or having it been repaired, and you don't see it similar to that. So, but that's kind of where it is. eBay is kind of opened the door to allow way more people into this business than ever before. It just used to take an awful lot of time to actually to research stuff. The internet didn't exist, so it was you had to know it. I am probably, aren't I? Let me fix that. Edit stream. Just chatting. Thanks for the heads up there. Search tags are. I don't think there are any tags for antiques. Oopsie, shoot. And now it's gone. Let's go back. Yeah, I blew it. So we're just chatting. We don't have any antiques category, so we're just chatting here. And the tags are going to be that. So thank you. Yeah. So eBay's a good way to learn, and the internet's a huge way to learn. And yeah, if enough people did, they would probably create a category. And I was going to ask them about that, but so that's where we're at now. All right. So any other questions? Now, obviously, the internet. There's a lot of research. However, sometimes you can find a lot, and other times you can't find anything. So it's really hit or miss. But so let's oldest item I've bought. Gosh. Well, definitely that oldest would be that I know of that I bothered to probably date was that item that was patented in the mid 1800s. So keep in mind, Colorado was a difficult place to get to. Well, people got here with the covered wagons and later in trains and later in buses and later in airplanes and stuff. So a lot of antiques didn't make it out on covered wagons. I'm guessing they tried, and I'm guessing a lot of a lot of items that were on a covered wagon in the way of furniture might have been tossed off or burned along the way because it was a really difficult task to get here. So a lot of the antiques probably came in on train later, as soon as the trains hit Denver. But the antiques we have in Colorado uh, tend to be they're not in great shape. Now, we certainly people have imported stuff from England and France and all over the world, so they do exist, just not in the quantity that, especially if you're back east or even in the Midwest. I go back there and I find things there that people have barns just filled with stuff that they're fantastic. Compared to the amount of searching that we have to find for good antiques in Colorado. A lot of our furniture was made out of pine. Pine's a softwood, and not the best to make stuff out. It's great if you like rustic stuff, but we don't have walnut out here. We don't have most of the hardwood. We don't have oak. We have cedar, but cedar's tiny. Some of the spruce trees and stuff and firs for actually building is fine, but furniture, another story. Ash, we do have ash trees here, but hickory, things of that nature, no, that don't exist. So most of the good antiques came from somewhere else. So that's what we're left with. We have a lot of rustic stuff, a lot of the farming stuff, the tractor parts and the wheels and things of that. That's pretty commonplace everywhere. But finding stuff from 1700s is pretty far and few between. Now, there may be glass in other parts of antiquing that I'm not particularly interested in. I don't like overly breakable things like glass and plates and things of that nature, so I avoid that. And I don't get into artwork either, generally, because artwork is too much based on personal preference. Now, certain artists obviously have more value than others. I don't know them. I don't get into it. We buy a lot of. I have a bunch of artwork that I bought, and it doesn't sell for very much. But in turn, I can't very well sell it for very much either on the other side. So I like to buy wildlife prints and Western type stuff and things of that nature. But artwork for me does not sell very well, so I kind of avoid that. So. Excuse the Animal Crossing stuff in the stream. I probably should turn that off for the next time. I'll make a note to do that. So unless there's any other questions on antiquing or about my background or anything else, so any of the values I give you is what I believe this item could sell for in my area. I can't guarantee it. I don't necessarily have buyers for any of this. It's just what I've looked at and what I personally feel these items could go for. I'll give you a couple seconds, type out a question or not, and if not, if I'm good, we'll go. All right, so we'll go here. Let me grab my printed sheet that's on the printer. Hang on a second. Okay. Sorry about that. I think every house in PA has one of those landscape paintings with a forest and deer. Yeah. Yeah, I see a lot of those. My favorite is waterfowl, and I should not be buying anything. Um, Now, we recently purchased, I don't have pictures of it. Uh, you guys would know them as like Hoosier cabinets that were in your kitchen. They were a shelf and they'd store flowers or potatoes, cooking items. They'd have a worktop. The one we recently purchased was not in great shape, but I did a little bit of refurbing on it. I don't like to buy things that need a lot of repair because I'm not a master craftsman. I'm not a master carpenter to build drawers and to repair things that delicate. I can frame things and structural stuff, cool. Major repair, not so much. And those generally sell for about $1,500 here. And so we have one of those. And then we also found a it was a world map, and it's probably from the 1990s, but it's made out of little slivers of stone, if you will, that are or mother of pearl is what you might call them. But this is a very large map, and then it has little teeny clocks around on the bottom for each time zone, and that also ends up being about $1,500. So those are some of the more expensive pieces. In the mall, I try to keep a lot of smalls. Try to attract people to buy small things. A lot of people, don't walk into a store with $1,500 always. So, so you gotta always have something for somebody to, that's like, hey, that's pretty cool. That's $10 or $15 or $20. I gotta buy that. So that's kind of where they're at. So, so let's talk about this item. So this item came to us via our attorney, actually. He's our estate attorney, and that we've worked with for many number of years. And this is his family's item. His family ran the Potter's Drugstore in Boulder, Colorado. And from what I remember, and once again, finding stuff on the internet can be easy and sometimes hard. This was hard. I believe that he told me that his father took over the store around 1905. I don't know if he was the first owner of it. Potter's Drugstore is talked about in the history books. So this item came out of their actual drugstore, and his father ran it, and he retired around 1970 in the 70s. So this was, and we were able to go in and help him try to clear out his mom and dad's house that had passed away, and there was just stuff all over. We did sell their cash register for them. It was a newer cash register, probably from the 30s, maybe 40s. So it wasn't super old, it wasn't super valuable, but it was interesting. And we have a bunch of apothecary or drugstore related items that have also come out of his storage. And some of those are very interesting, not necessarily very sellable. We've sold some of it, but I find some of it just really cool. Just the herbs and the things they sold still in the original packaging. But I don't have that. So this is a match dispenser. So you put a penny in, you move the silver arm, it goes left and right, and each time you move it, a book of matchsticks, not matches in a match book. These are little boxes that would have strike matches, would have the striker on the side of the little box. So you paid for a penny. So these would be somewhere where they sold tobacco products, obviously. This particular unit was made by the Griswold. It's called the 1 cent Griswold match machine. It's the Ever Nice model 4243. That was written on the inside on the back cover. Griswold Manufacturing, per match box. Griswold Manufacturing was located in Rock Island, Illinois. They were established in 1891, and they made 24 or so what they called trade stimulator devices. So this was a trade stimulator devices. It'd be more kind of like those things, guess your weight, things of that nature. This machine holds 30 boxes of matches, 2 stacks on each side. The matches are dispensed on either side. The side moves back and forth. It's made out of cast iron. The bottom is cast iron, and so is the top, and it's porcelain covered, or porcelainized as they called it. About 15.5 inches tall, 4 inches wide around the actual side of the tower, if you will. This unit had glass in front of the advertising. Unfortunately, it was broken, so I removed the glass, and that should be replaced. And we will do that because my cat knocked this off the counter and broke it. So that's on us. This happened quite a while ago. So the actual advertising is written on with pieces of cardboard, and I can't tell you that this was done in 1920 because I don't know. These machines were sold around 18 or 1918, I found an ad for one of these in a magazine, and let me see if I can find the right picture. That is not it. So that's another version of one. I'm going to see if I can get all these. Okay, so let's just go there. Maybe I don't have the ad here. I don't. Anyways, so these are similar machines. Now these other two machines that are off to the right hand side, these are machines that the Griswold manufacturing company made. It looks like the second machine that also says 1 cent is very similar to this machine, and so that one's in better condition, maybe reconditioned a little bit more. So you see that it has some personalization kind of underneath it, and I can't remember what it says. And then the one further to the left, I don't believe is the same company, as it looks completely different. There was another company that did make these as well. Let's see. So there should be glass. Yep, we talked about that. Yeah, I found an ad. It's called the National Association of Retail Druggists from 1918 for this machine. They sold the original machine for $6.50. Oh, I thought I put the ad. I had a graphic with the ad, and I don't know what I did with it. Shame on me. I don't see it here, so I must not have made the slide for it. We can go back to the Potter's Drugstore quickly. So we'll turn these graphics off real quick. And so there's Potter's Drugstore, and I'm not exactly sure when this picture was taken. It wasn't dated, and this was still the drugstore at the time. I wish I had better pictures, and unfortunately the family doesn't really have any better pictures either, which I find sad and unfortunate, because this is a historical landmark in Boulder, Colorado. Boulder is where the University of Colorado is at. This is along what's now called the Pearl Street Mall. This was one of the premier areas in Boulder to be in. I see there's a TV antenna on the top of that building, which leads me to believe that obviously it's probably in the 50s when that picture was taken. Be my guess. The original building, it's a brick building, was built in 1884. One of the people that built it was Mackey. And Mackey is a big name in Boulder, and his name is, I believe, one of the arenas up in Boulder at the campus is called the Mackey Arena, or there's a Mackey building, but he's a big guy up there. So the Potters, I believe they started in the early 1900s. Right now the location is a outdoor clothing store, part of the Pearl Street Mall. Way back in the day, they had wooden boardwalks were there until the 1880s, where it was replaced by flagstones somewhere in the 1880s. Now, every boardwalk was a different height and maybe a different width. So it was rather hazardous to walk along the street, if you will. The street was actually paved in 1917, which should tell you something. So there were some cars around. What I found interesting also is in 1891, they put a rail system for a horse-drawn carriage that would go from one end of the street to the other. Now, I don't know how far it went. They didn't talk about that. And when they got to one end, they'd unhook the horse. They would move it around to the other end and go back the other direction. So they did charge a fare, apparently maybe too much, or people felt that they could just walk. And the initial horse-drawn carriage business failed. About 10 years later, they brought an electric trolley or a carriage. And then in 1908, they put in a railway streetcar system that took over, and you could actually ride that all the way to Denver, believe it or not. So you could drop in and just hop on, hop off. Let me turn the show you the artwork on the side, and I'll put a penny in. I can't. It's kind of right behind me, but not within arm's reach. So I'll go turn it left and right so you can see the advertising on either side. That Ohio Safety Matches right in the middle, that's actually the box of matches. That was the top of it. And then on the other side is a advertisement for Gillette razors, and that's actually from the box that the razors came in as well. It's glued on to this piece of cardboard, so which is very, very interesting. Well, it doesn't look like it's going to take pennies now. It was working earlier. There we go. There we go. Oh, there may be something hung up inside there. I didn't pay much attention to it. So here's the side. If you can hear me, I'm trying to speak up. So it says cigars and cigarettes, Gillette Blue Blades. And this part is actually glued on. It came from the actual box of razors. And it says Potter's Drugstore and Boulder Prescription Pharmacy. And then on the other side, cigars and cigarettes. This is coming loose here. When the glass was in here, this was all very, very sturdy and everything else. So, established in 1901. There you go. I should have just read the sign. So 1901. I believe there were a number of family members involved. So. I have no idea if you guys can hear me. That's what I thought. I thought it was fantastic, actually. I want to believe it's. With the advertising on there, I have to believe that it's authentic. It had to come from the time. I don't believe that somebody would have redone this down the road unless it was for a gift or something for their father, maybe. But I don't see it. I see it being old enough that it was there. Whoever did it, maybe it was. Maybe they had a store that. Whatever, a sign-making place that actually made it up for them. I doubt that it was done by the manufacturing company, just because of what I have seen. Nothing was this fancy, so I think they took it upon themselves to have this made. Or maybe they did contract with with a company. It's hard to know. I did also find an ad for one of these machines in it was like a travel magazine that catered to like the hotel and restaurant business. So these were items that were put there, kind of like today's gumball machines, if you will, or olden day gumball machines. I guess we can't use gumball machines currently. So it's a very, very interesting item. Now the name Griswold, especially for you guys in Pennsylvania, probably said I've heard that name before, right? So Griswold is a very well-known maker of cast iron skillets, waffle irons, pots, and pans. As far as I can tell, the two companies are not related. The names are spelled identical. Whether they have any family lineage, I don't know. There is no tie that I found on the internet. Griswold is one of the best cast iron brands available. They're no longer made. They sold the company, I forget, in 1999, I believe, to somebody else. But they are no longer making their product. And they were some of the best cast iron things that you could buy. In fact, large pieces will sell $300, $400, $500, $600 for real if they're in good shape. Now, if they're all rusted out and stuff, not happening. So, but Griswold, if you see Griswold cast iron stuff, Look it up. You might be surprised. Okay, I'm glad that you could you could hear a little bit. The microphone is meant to pick up that way, but I was probably about 6 feet away. So this piece, I found one that was redone, similar to this. It's a different model. I believe it's newer. They believed it was probably 1925. The top is different. They were asking $850 for it. So when I get glass back in it, I don't see why it wouldn't, why I wouldn't put the same price tag on it as they did. Now, I don't believe there's a sold. I still think it's on eBay right now. Now, locally, I might be able to get more just because of the Potter's Drugstore on it. In fact, I probably can. So I could probably mark this up, maybe over $1,000, and probably get it once I get the glass back in. So I don't know if they want to sell it or not. It's just a really cool item that we found in their stuff, along with many other stuff. I have a huge, I don't know if it's cast iron or not, but it's a big black cauldron, if you will, which they make candy in. My attorney friend, who's the son, he recalls making candy with this big pot. This big cauldron. The drugstore is not there anymore. There's at one point there was something called Potter's. It was a restaurant, and I don't know if that was run by the family. I never picked that up through conversations with my friend. So I don't know whether they just kept the name because it used to be Potter's Drugstore or not. But right now it's got Helly Hansen in it, which is an outdoor clothing company. Ski coats, things of that nature. Good quality stuff. That's what it says according to Google. That's in there right now. So that's the 1 cent Griswold match machine. So very interesting. The history, at least for me, is one of the most interesting parts to it. We still have some of the pieces of the drugstore. I've got the brass foot rail that was probably on their soda fountain, their soda fountain bar. I still have that. It's hard to sell. It's just it's a piece of round brass, but it's like I'm not throwing it away. We had a trailer. We threw most anything that. There is a lock on the back, and we do not have the key. So, but if you take the 4 screws off, the nuts on the top, it all comes apart. It's a royal pain in the butt to put back together. And I did find some pennies from the 1940s in it, and then a few from the 70s. So I'm going to guess that, this was probably displayed in their home and just kind of an item that people would talk about. So, or the kids messed around with. There weren't a lot. I'm guessing they had a key at some point. Unfortunately, it's gone. Yeah, people trying to get it out. When is Heroes and Generals? I don't play Heroes and Generals. I don't think my stream says Heroes and Generals. I hope it doesn't. Should be just chatting. But we've been playing Animal Crossing before this. And we're talking about antiques and collectibles today for the next, until I'm finished, I guess. Probably another hour or so. But if you're new to the stream, welcome. We're trying something new out here. My name is Mike. Do sell antiques in the Denver area, also stream games. So just thought we'd change it up a little bit on a Friday. So feel free to follow me if you'd like. And you can check out the other streams. I have played Heroes and Generals in the past, but not anytime recently. I don't know if Furlong and Bowie we played that or not. I know some other friends and I did play that. So we'll move along to the next item. So give me a couple seconds to get that set up. We'll turn off the image of the drugstore there, and I'll be right back. Okay. Let me get rid of this title screen here. So we're on to part 2 here. So we'll get reset here a little bit. My name is Mike, Mountain Boomer. I stream games, and I also we sell antiques for a living as well. And we sell antiques at a local antique mall here in Denver called the Brass Armadillo. It's off of I-70 in Kipling. So we've been talking about some of what I do in my streams when I'm streaming Animal Crossing, and we talked about antiques, and people seem to be very interested in that. So here we are, trying something new. So what do we have here? Does anybody want to guess what this is? Probably no way to guess. Anyways, I just put the water bottle there just for a size. So what this is a point of sale item that would hang on the newsstand, and you would clip the Cosmopolitan magazine to it. And this is what the magazine would have looked like back in the day. I don't know that the size is absolutely correct there. I just pulled this image off the internet. So this came from either the late teens or 20s when the magazine was actually 25 cents. So they would just hang on the newsstand, kind of like you have at the checkout stand, instead of the magazine things. The magazine would just actually get clipped on there. So just a point of sale clip, if you will. Incredibly rare. You don't find them at all. I looked them up high and low, and we have another friend. Obviously, I'm into antiques, so we have friends that are into antiques as well. And he did some work with the Antique Roadshow, and he's a very, very, very well schooled in this. And he's seen them before, and pretty much told us we knew what they were, but to know what they're kind of worth and stuff when you can't find something is makes it very difficult. So let's talk about the interesting thing about this clip, obviously, is that it is from the 20s. And people that would be interested in this would be people that followed the publisher, whoever created the magazine, people into newsstand items, or might collect Cosmopolitan type items. So once again, this is probably from the 20s. It was made by a ad company in New York, and that doesn't seem to be important. I don't have it right off, but what I find interesting about all the antiques is the research into the background. What was Cosmopolitan magazine then? We all know what Cosmopolitan magazine is, a women's magazine now. It didn't start out that way, although most of the covers had women on them back in the day. This kind of glamorous cover art, which was common at the time. Cosmopolitan originally began as a family magazine, first published based in New York City on March of 1886 by Schlichten Field of New York as the Cosmopolitan. Authors and their writings in the first issue included Paul Schlicht told his first issue readers inside of the front cover that his publication was a first-class family magazine, then adding there will be a department devoted exclusively to the concerns of women, with articles on fashion, on household decoration, on cooking, and the care and management of children, etc. There was also a department for the younger members of the family. Cosmopolitan circulation reached about 25,000 that first year, which I think is incredible. That's a lot of people in the 1800s. By November of 1888, apparently 25,000 wasn't enough because they were out of business. John Brisman Walker acquired the magazine in 1889. That same year, he dispatched Elizabeth Bisland on a race around the world against Nellie Bly to draw attention to the magazine. Those names kind of ring a bell, but not really. I didn't do any research on those. Under Walker's ownership, Edie Walker, formerly with the Harper's Monthly, took over as the new editor. introducing color illustrations, serials, and book reviews. It became a leading market for fiction featuring many authors. Um, Another funny story is in 1897, Cosmopolitan announced plans for a free correspondence school. No charge of any kind will be made to the student. All expenses for the present will be borne by the Cosmopolitan. No conditions except a pledge of a given number of hours of study. When 20,000 immediately signed up, Walker could not fund the school, and students were then asked to contribute $20 a year. Let's see. In 1887, H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds was serialized, as was his first Men in the Moon in 1900. Olive Screener contributed a lengthy two-part article about the Boer War. And let's see, in 1905, William Randolph Hearst, a name that many people should be familiar with. The Hearst family purchased a lot of things back in the day. He purchased a magazine for $400,000, equivalent to $11 million in 2019, which I don't think is that much money for a big magazine. Seems like a pretty good deal. And he brought in journalist Charles Edward Russell, who contributed a series of investigative articles. Hearst formed a company called Cosmopolitan Productions, known as Cosmopolitan Pictures. They tried to do films in New York City from 1918 to 1923, and then in Hollywood until 1938. Their vision was to make films from stories published in the magazine. In the 1930s, they had a circulation of about 1.7 million. Cosmopolitan had an advertising income of $5 million, emphasizing fiction in the 40s. It was subtitled The Four-Book Magazine, since the first section had one novelette, 6 or 8 short stories, 2 serials, 6 to 8 articles, and 8 or 9 special features, while the other 3 sections featured 2 novels and a digest of current nonfiction books. During World War II, sales peaked at $2 million, or 2 million subscriptions. They ran less fiction during the 50s. Circulation dropped to slightly over 1 million by 1955, in a time where things were changing again, similar to what we're seeing today, where magazines were overshadowed by the rise of paperback books and television. The golden age of magazines came to an end as mass market, general interest publications gave way to special interest magazines targeting specialized audiences. So, a very unique piece. We have 2 of them. I'm sure they came out of the same drugstore. Value on these $50 to $100. They're pretty cool, but very limited scope of who would have an interest in these particular products. So that's kind of where we're at with the second item. Anybody have any questions or anything on that regarding this item or anything in general? All right. So we'll do a little bit of a reset. Are we still streaming Heroes and Generals? I don't believe I'm streaming Heroes and Generals, but maybe I should go check my own stream. Well, that says still Animal Crossing. Did it switch? I probably should have started the stream over, is what I probably should have. Now we're just chatting. Okay, I don't know where Heroes and Generals came, unless that's a friend of mine who is just trolling me, which is perfectly possible. All right, so give me 1 second, and I will go to the last item, and we'll talk about that briefly. All right. Let me get rid of the little Cosmo graphic there. Okay, so what we have here. These are communication microphones, commonly known as, we affectionately call them the lollipop. This is the Astatic, this is the D104 microphone. These were common with both ham radio and CBeers alike. These are microphones that are designed for communication purposes. Unlike the microphone that I'm talking into now, which is a broadcast quality microphone, where all frequencies are accepted, versus the communication microphones, where we tried to compact the power into the area of speech, which was the the area of speech which is most intelligible, if you will. We didn't put a lot of effort into the highs, the very highs or the very lows, because those would just get lost in radio waves. When you're trying to talk to somebody around the world or across the way over a radio wave, a lot of it can get lost in the translation. So you're looking for something that was crisp and clear, kind of packed more of a punch, if you will. Broadcast radio like FM or AM radio, you wanted a soothing sound. You wanted something that you could listen to for hours. That's not the goal of communication. The goal of communication was to communicate, to get message through, to be able to get your message passed, or to be able to talk around the world. So the silver one on the right hand side is actually mine. I own that probably since the 80s. I became a ham radio operator around 1979, 1978 at the age of about 13. We had a local club station at the junior high school, and one of the science teachers was a ham radio operator, and a lot of people in the area, oddly. I grew up in a very, very rural area. I mean, there was hardly anybody around, but there were quite a number of ham radio operators. So I was very fortunate in that regard. My grandfather was actually the person that got me involved in ham radio. We first got started with CBs when that rage started. Talking to my dad as he would drive home from work in his car, we put a CB in his car, and my grandfather had CBs as they were into traveling and travel trailers and things of that nature. So it made it very, very easy for them to communicate while they were traveling to their campsites and stuff. So many CB operators ended up making the transition over to ham radio. But the microphones are basically the same. These could have been used in commercial applications as well, in military applications. I don't know of any particular military applications for this microphone myself, so I'm not sure if they didn't use some other brands. A competing brand was called Shure. They're still around. It was called the Shure 444D, and it looked different. I did own one of those at one time. And as the technology changed, people still like the look of this microphone. Let me see if I can find the... we've got some graphics. So this is the 5 different kinds that they made. And like I said, this is an Astatic microphone. And these were created around 1930. In 1930, 2 amateur radio operators, W8WR, later W8MJM, that will mean nothing to you, and W8AHW, and that doesn't mean anything to me either, began experimenting with different types of microphones for their ham stations. Their mutual friend, Charles Semple, worked for Brush Development Company, where he had been experimenting with salt crystals. Semple demonstrated some crystal pickups that Brush was working with, leading the 2 hams to found the Astatic Microphone Laboratory in Youngstown, Ohio in 1933. They hired Semple to manufacture and market the D104 crystal microphone, as well as other microphones, crystal phonograph pickups, and recording heads. In early 1944, Astatic moved operations to Conneaut, Ohio, Conneaut, Conneaut, I don't know, and supplied microphones, pickups, and crystal cartridges, as well as hydrophone and sonar devices to the military during World War II. After World War II, Astatic Microphone Laboratory became the Astatic Corporation. The D104 was introduced in 1933, and that the top part comes off the stand. The D104 part, you can see it screws onto the stand, and they made numerous different stands. And as you see in the graphics, they had different colors. The Golden Eagle was gold. I don't believe it was gold. And on the back was an eagle on the back. And then they also had the Silver Eagle, which is they're very fancy. I've seen them in real life, and they're pretty amazing. This graphic shows the older, more vintage microphones than what you see here, which would be from the 80s or 90s. The D104, introduced in 1933, known for its high frequency response, which contributed to better communications audio quality. Earlier D104 mics used a 1-inch thick case, a large ID tag, and holes for ring and spring mounts. The design was modified in 1937 with smaller tags and reduced thickness. A black grip stand, switch stand, the G stand, which is what these are, with metal ID tag, was manufactured in 1938. These were not. These were later. A solid-state amplifier was incorporated into the base in the 60s. You turn them over, there's screws on the bottom, and you can hook these up for a variety of different radios in usage. So these were universal across the board. Let's see. The solid-state amplifier was because some radios started having different specifications for the microphones. Now we have powered microphones, like the microphone that I'm streaming with. This requires 48 volts. It's an electric type microphone, so it's powered. Let's see. They made a bicentennial model in 1776. I've seen that as well, and that's pretty amazing. Featuring an eagle and shield design on the back, as well as a chrome base. There was also a gold in color version with the eagle on the back. There were also variations, but production ceased in 2001. The D104 is often used by CB radio hobbyists and vintage amateur radio enthusiasts as part of their operating activities. The frequency response tailored for these emphasize speech, where broadcast mics are tailored for full response from 20 hertz to 20K. We talked about wanting to kind of compact the power into. I'm going to put up some graphics here. So this was one of the original manuals, if you will, and then this is legendary microphone frequency responses. Let me move this out of the way. That's just one of their ads. So when we talk to hertz, this chart doesn't even go from 20 to. It does go from 20 to 2000, but you can see where the D104 is this purple line that goes up, and most of these microphones have a similar peak right around the 2800 hertz, which is very typical of all communication microphone elements, because that's the brunt of where our voice is. So that's what you want to carry through, and then a steep roll off on the top end. Like anything after really about 5,000 is useless when it gets mixed in with static and what have you. And the lows don't carry a whole lot either. You want mostly mids is where we're going with communication. So big differences with the broadcast mic that I'm talking into now. It's the whole gamut there. However, most mixing boards have equalizers. So I'm emphasizing my highs and mids, and I'm de-emphasizing the lows because my voice is fairly low. We also have a compressor on my mixing board, which helps the punch of my audio come through, even though it's in a broadcast sense. You still want to accentuate the speech area so people can hear you clearer, but in a broadcast sense, you want it full-bodied, so it's not so hard on the ears. So it's more like a conversation that you can carry on over the airways and still carry the information through in a broadcast sense. Communication conversations are usually much, much shorter. We talked about compression. We talked about the mixing boards. These microphones, the ones in front of you, probably $50 for the one in black, maybe a little bit more for the one in silver. It just depends upon the area of the buyer. They're all over the place on eBay. The Golden Eagle model is still worth about $250. So I wish I had one. They're really cool. I don't have a radio that can use them. I still play with my ham radios a little bit. They're in this room, but I pretty much shut them down in the summertime due to lightning and stuff. So, but most of the newer radios do not use these type of microphones anymore. In fact, the one I use is it's not necessarily a gaming headset, but it's a Yamaha CM50 microphone, which is just an electric mic. And most of the modern day radios have equalizers, and so as long as you can equalize your transmitted frequencies out, you can pretty much use any microphone element. It doesn't really matter as long as you get the drive that you need. So the old tube radios, they had different requirements, were built much, much different than today. But they still work. They still work, and they're just kind of fun. They have a unique shape. Nothing ever came close to it. Many people down probably in the 90s started replacing the crystal element with a company called Heil, and I think they were in Ohio as well. They made a lot of musical microphones for bands and things of that nature, for singing and what have you. And he started having elements made, and they were very small, so you could take this microphone back apart and take their element out and put in this new element, and it was tailored even better for communications. So, but people just like the size, the grip. There's a clip on the bottom, the slider. I'll go slide that up real quick. So when you did that would put the microphone or the transmitter into transmit, and it would hold the microphone. So you could either squeeze the bar there, or you could. There were other modes called Vox. We have that today, like through gaming, voice operated transmit, and it just depends about how you had your mic wired up. Many of us use and still use a foot switch. So. I don't like Vox because of things that can go on in the room around you that you probably do not necessarily want to be transmitting over airwaves. Cussing and what have you is not appropriate for a ham radio operator. So, or kids screaming in the background, or people coming into the room or whatever. So, I would use the foot switch only when I wanted to talk, and that way I didn't have to worry about some things maybe going out over the air that might be embarrassing. So that's the Astatic D104, and if you're into ham radio or something, or even into CB, you might have seen these. If you've seen some old time radio stations set up, this was a pretty common microphone. So that's kind of where we're at. That's that. Pretty much episode 1 here for Antiques and Collectibles. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I'd like to know if we want to try this again sometime. This was an ad for the microphone element, $17.50. that was a long time ago. That was probably back in the 30s when they were first made. Didn't get don't know when that where that ad was when I found it on the internet. So, but man, these were the standard at the time. So, I thought about if people were interested in and they had items of their own that were of unusual interest, antique stuff, that people could send me pictures, and we could talk about those over the stream as well. Furlog, my friend Steve, they've got a really cool grandfather clock that we're working on trying to identify and put some value on. There's some real interesting story behind that. And I've got a friend of mine in England who's a ham radio operator that is restoring mostly English-made, they call them long clocks, long wall clocks or something. I'll have to look at that. I do like clocks. I'm not into repairing much, but I love clocks, and I have a number of grandfather clocks here, and I've sold quite a number, a few grandfather clocks. They have certainly fallen out of favor with today's generation, and they're the younger generation, let's say. The younger generations tend to not be very interested in the antiques. Most anyways. I'm generalizing, of course. There's going to be exceptions to every rule. But the ones they do like are unique, are smaller, especially when it comes to furniture. They're not as most people are not into the big furniture. Mostly smaller houses, kind of downsizing per se, more than the big houses that we used to live in and grow up. So it's a little more challenging trying to find items for people probably under the age of 30. 30 to 40 is different, and 40 on up. I mean, 40 to 50 is kind of insane, and then. For my age, I'm 55. I have a different like than other people, and then you have the older folks yet, which have a different view on it altogether. If you're looking for furniture that's going to hold up, you might look for antiques. You might be able to paint them, use some chalk paint, but the furniture that's built today is nowhere near the same quality, unless you're spending an awful lot of money. The Ethan Allens and even some of their stuff is not spectacularly built. It's better than most, but there are some better names out there. But things that you may find out and about, IKEA, no, not going to work. It'll get you by for a year or so, but it's not long lasting. It's not made for that. That's not their market. But if you're looking for something to last, you might look for that. You might find some deals, because antiques, the value continues to go down. Because of the interest is not as high. So their interest is high in the unique, in the very high quality pieces, and like I said, most of what I specialize is unique, different items. So. Now, if you can buy it right, then you can still sell items. But the day of the very, very high priced antique furniture that ship sailed a long time ago. So that's kind of where we are with antiques today. Collectibles are a completely different world. What's collectible today is not what it was in the past. Glassware used to be high on the list. Maybe a grandmother or great grandmother with Hummels. They were made in West Germany. They still are. By Goebel, used to sell for a lot of money. Today, you're lucky to give them away, maybe $30 when they used to sell for $150. Now, the rare ones, the ones that are old, can still carry a lot of value. Hello, dogs. But the ones that are made recently, not so much. So you have to be careful on that. So glassware used to be highly, highly collectible. Once again, the market for that is has really dissipated. Sterling silver. Depends upon the pattern. Flatware, same thing. A lot of it's pattern based. Just because it's old doesn't mean it has any value whatsoever. it has to be in good shape or great shape, and it has to be the right pattern, especially with like some of the dishware, some of the dish sets that I see at auction. Sometimes they can't even give them away for $10, where they used to sell for hundreds and hundreds, and it's just because we don't eat formally like that anymore, or most of us do not. It's just interesting the way society has changed. Some people do have, the big mansions, and they need all that stuff to stock up. So, but there's still something in it for everybody. Like I said, I'm into the music, the electronics, older vintage instruments. What's coming back big is 80s vinyl, 70s, 80s of vinyl, maybe even 60s vinyl. Vinyl's coming back huge, and they're putting out turntables again. So, very, very interesting turn of events there. So. I wish I knew where all my 80s albums were. Too many moves later, and I have no clue, because I'm pretty sure that ones that I would have had might valuable, maybe $10-20 a piece. I mean, you can't buy new vinyl for that. I think new vinyl's like about $20 for what they're selling for at Target or Walmart or whatever that I saw. Even Amazon selling it. So, but much of the value in some of those albums are in the album covers, especially with certain artists. So you can research that and try to find out which covers might be more desirable than others. And some of the Beatles albums, and once again with albums, if it's unopened, unscratched, can you see it? Can you touch it? It's a different world, but it's out there. I mean, there's, like I said, there's something for everybody. You can collect Hot Wheels. You can collect the Hummels if you like. You can collect microphones. I was in the fire service for a while, so I was collecting some fire stuff. I've kind of gotten away from that. There's fire extinguishers. There's amazingly beautiful copper and brass fire extinguishers that have been polished up. There's some that are terribly ugly that aren't really going to garner any money unless you spend the money to get them redone, and you probably won't make anything at it. And that's the problem. Is it's very difficult to put in much money and still be able to make money in antiques unless you have a buyer on a piece that's one of a kind, or very few of a kind, and they're willing to actually pay to have it done. I meant to talk about some of the shows you see on TV, American Pickers. Go back to the beginnings and look at the prices, and I will give them credit. Today they have modified what they believe they can get for their products immensely. They've come way down in price. They were pie in the sky. I looked at stuff and went, no way they're going to get that for whatever they just paid for that. Keep in mind, it's TV. It's made up. It's not necessarily true. Nowhere does it say that they're negotiating in good faith or these deals aren't made up. Same with like storage floors. We all know that there's items put in there. They seeded the lockers and whatever. Antiques Roadshows, be very careful if you're watching those shows trying to get a value of something that are if they're particularly old. They were I don't believe they overestimated stuff on purpose, but the times have changed, and I think they gave higher prices just to sound better than maybe you could get. But it's fun to watch. It gives you an idea what things might be of value. But if it's on TV, be very skeptical. These reality TV shows are maybe not so much reality, but they are TV shows, and they're there to get you to watch and get to watch their commercials. So it's all the same with the shows. They're fun to watch, and not much different than House Hunters International, where the prices of what they're telling you may or may not be really true. I know for a fact in Costa Rica and Belize that they've come down there and they raised the prices of what they told people they sold for, because they were fearful that people would come down and buy cheap property real cheap. So that goes the other way too. And I'm going to guess that things that they said were $300,000 in some areas of booming areas in the Caribbean and where have you, you couldn't touch again. So there's parts of Costa Rica that are very expensive now that are very difficult to buy into for, there aren't a lot of deals unless you're way out there. I've been to Costa Rica many times and Belize a number of times as well, and other Caribbean islands. So it's interesting. It's interesting. You just have to do your own research, especially when it comes to TV. So that's about it for me on antiques. We didn't take up more than a little bit over an hour and 20 minutes. So we'll have to maybe work on, or we'll just do an hour show from now on. And but if you'd like to send me pictures of what you've got going on, maybe something you'd like talked about, you can find my email on the Twitch page. There should be an email there, I think, or you can send it to Mike at mtnboomer.com, Mike at mtnboomer.com, but I think the other one says business at mtnboomer.com, something. Either would get to me, or you can come onto the Discord, and we can talk there as well. So appreciate your time. Once again, if you haven't followed me, shoot me a follow. And antiques, and recently just been streaming Animal Crossing, and we'll probably go back to that, as I didn't get too much finished, and looking for some other games. I know there's a lot of new games out there, so I'm looking for some other games. First-person shooters I'm not particularly good at. If we have a good group playing and we just want to have fun, I'm all game for that. But I am looking for some new stuff. And I see the PS5's coming out. I'm not sure I'm going to be a PS5 buyer, but there are some stuff going on there. What happened?